And what that sounds like, Shagsworth is the type of person to tip the waiter before he orders.
No, no.
I had to think about it.
No.
I guess if I have the opportunity.
That's really hard for me not to do because I spent so many years in the service industry, so I could make a case for it. But I do tip. I'm one of those weird people who will like at those random stores, they're like, "Here, we have a couple questions for you." I'm like, "Fuck, fine, I'll 15%. There you go."
No,
I will never tip less than 22% at a restaurant, like a full
That's
service
an old
restaurant.
So you're the reason why all the machines revert to 15, 20, and 30%?
No, they've always been like that.
No,
no.
I don't
Standard
believe
tipping
in
when we
tipping
were
anything.
younger
They've
was
gotten
about
higher.
10%.
For full service. I don't believe in tipping anything less than 20%. But for like a coffee shop, like 10% is fine because they're making above minimum wage. And you're pouring a coffee out of a spout. Like there's not a real skill involved.
I do the same thing I do at bars. I tip $1 per drink ordered.
Yeah. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll just throw like 20 on the bar. I'll pay for my drink and then throw a 20 down and like let them know like, please come back to me because there's more of this if you take care of me.
That's called bribing people, Shags.
And it
No,
works,
that's how
my friend.
Yeah, that's how the service industry works.
Let me tell you. So
I
as a
knew my
guy-
customers when they walked in the door, and I would be like, immediately grab them, bring them to the table, get them everything they needed because I knew they were going to make it worth every penny by the time they were gone, no matter how much of a pain in the ass they were.
Well, and as a guy that goes to a bar, you don't if you're not throwing money down, you're not getting attention. The women are getting the attention to get drinks, but if you go in there, you pay for your drink and give them a big tip right off the bat, they will always look for you.
It's
always.
true.
More importantly, if you take a
a
woman there and you don't tip, she notices.
Oh, they
Yes.
definitely do.
It's true too.
That or
No, go ahead.
When we were in Wisconsin, like we got like drink tickets and basically get a free drink, and I was like, well, I'm still going to tip. I looked at my wallet, I was like, oh, guys, I have nothing smaller than a 10, so here you go.
I gave them a 5 with my one drink. So
they got $10 for a drink that costs $8 for free. So
yeah,
No, I'll grab a table and I'll tell the first person that comes up, I'll just leave money on the table. If you keep the drinks coming, you can take the money.
there you go.
Yep.
there you go.
Yeah, no, there was a little place that's not in Kansas City anymore called Jardines. And I was working in the service industry. I was waiting tables, so I knew what it was like. And I tipped very well. And like literally those girls would like grab me the second they walked me in my door and like right to a table right away. Didn't have to wait, nothing. Because that's what happens when you take care of them. It really does.
And then he had a second kid.
We don't talk about Sylvia. She was a very nice lady. I was young. I was underage for drinking at the time. We didn't talk about it afterwards. It's okay. I get pictures.
This is also why, like, when people start talking about removing tipping from, like when California is talking about just adding on the service charge to the ticket, the problem with that is that you're getting taxed on it, but also that's like part of that is going to go to the house. And the point of a tip is
the tip is for the waiter and waitress.
Right. The tip is for the waiter and the waitress. Anything like credit card tips are automatically claimed. Cash tips are king because you don't have to report that. So anytime you tip, it's always best to tip in cash.
I hate that.
I only have to. What's that?
some restaurants will pool the money and then divide it out at the end of the night.
I hate pools.
Oh yeah, sure. I'd never
pool
work in a
houses
restaurant like
suck.
that. I hate that.
Yeah.
You'll know.
Somebody worked their whole fucking ass off and socialism wins. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, and worse
Well, and
ones
that's why I
where the
don't
house actually takes a cut. That's retarded.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's why I don't like. That's why I don't like the whole idea of them eliminating tipping or trying to add it in as wage, because you remove the meritocracy that is primal to the service industry. The reason why guys can go down to certain restaurants and work on a Friday night or a Saturday night and make $1,500, and then this economy, and now the way inflation is $2,000 a night, is because those guys are the top of their game, and that's why they get hired at those kind of restaurants. And that's why they get paid that kind of stuff. And they deserve that. Now, what happens if you go, okay, well, you work at this top end restaurant where it's $500 a plate, but you're only going to get $15 an hour. Then you might as well go to McDonald's, because that's the exact same kind of service you're going to get.
Well, and that so
Well, they're
when
not
I tell
talking about
people-
hourly. They're talking about making it part of the bill, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah, but it's
It still
So you would
removes
get
it still removes the
paid-
incentive.
well, there it's two. I
Well,
think
we've
it's
always
twofold,
had
though.
automatically, on parties 8 or above or whatever, they have always done the thing where they add like an automatic 15%.
Yeah, well, that's not necessarily, but that's not your bread and butter. Like 8 tops, 8 tops plus are great, but it's not where you make your money overall. Like
Right, you
it's-
got to
it's
turn over
certainly not.
tables.
Yeah, it's the turnover. And what I tell people about the service industry is if you think about it like you're a subcontractor for like this restaurant, you can make way more money. So like it's your own private business, and you every day you walk in, you the way you present yourself, it's your brand. Your face is the storefront. Your knowledge of the product is what helps sell. Like, and it sounds cliche again, but be an order maker, not an order taker, because like it's a difference between like a vending machine and being someone who understands the food, who can take someone who has food allergies and be like, oh, I know what you can and can't have. Boom, bam. You'll make way more money by and large. And some people don't get it. They don't do the tipping right, but more often than not, if you take care of someone, they'll reward you for it.
I don't
Okay,
get
quick
tipping
question.
in general as a thing, because it's like obviously it's something that's not done over here yet. We still have a pretty thriving industry as well. So
Well,
yeah, it's a weird concept.
Yeah,
We
it's
like
not,
It's an
meritocracy.
American thing.
Yeah,
It's not just American. There are other countries that do it, but
Western thing. Yeah.
yeah, more of a Western thing. But the difference is, so it's hard to explain because, yeah, you can get decent service from people without tipping. The difference is that it kind of encourages the bad ones to seek different employment because they don't ever really make the same as the good ones.
Sucks to suck.
And
Yep.
that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a
Basically
question for you
that,
guys.
like, why should you who slouches, slacks off, doesn't do their job, to the bare minimum of like the expected service, why should you get the same level of like respect and reward that somebody who goes above and beyond gets?
Right.
yeah.
Well, I think it's up to the employer then to, if you've got a good employer, you want to make sure that employer sticks around. So you give them a bit extra. Like
I mean,
that's how
but
it
why
works.
not
I mean,
both? If someone is directly serving me,
Yeah, no, I'm saying
why
if someone
shouldn't
wants to
I
tip
be
that,
able to give them a little more
no,
so
I'm
that
not
they?
saying that not tipping. I'm just saying as a cultural thing where you have to tip.
Well, you don't
I'd
have
tip
to.
because
No,
it's
you don't
service.
have to. It's not absolutely mandatory. You're not going to be banned from the restaurant if you don't. It's
really
just
dirty
something
jokes.
that you should do because, for one, it's part of how they make their living, and for two, it's how you ensure that you get good service. It's
It's just something
capitalism.
built in here where
Yeah.
we've all
Yeah,
done
but
it
I mean,
all
there's
of our
good service
lives,
in
so
countries that
we're
don't
used to
tip
it.
as well.
Right.
It's not,
There's also a different culture in those
It's the
countries.
cultural differences for sure.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
most of
that's one of
my
the other things too, because like,
experience was not here, not in the U.S.
well, and one of the things that Grant was bringing up is why won't the management, do what they have to do to keep a good employee? Well, brother, I don't know how much middle management you've worked with, but no, it's nothing but favoritism and who's willing to kiss their ass more often than it's not.
But the
And
thing
so
is,
yeah,
is
that
if you
you're
do-
you're
Go
more
ahead.
likely to be rewarded from the customer than you are from your management.
But if you do work for a good company, you get it on both sides. You get a management that works to keep you there because you keep the customers happy, and you get good tips from the customers because you keep them happy. And at that point, you're benefiting on both ends. And
Double
there's
penetration.
nothing wrong with it.
Oh yeah, the DP.
Everybody's having their pleasure, and nobody's getting hurt.
Phrasing.
Serious
Good
question.
rant with
though.
you, Brahma.
If you could just incorporate in that sentence the word lube and something else, that would have been perfect.
Serious question on it
you're
though.
really-
So with like
If you're-
Mongolian grills where like you build up your own plate, they cook it up, or say a buffet like Golden Corral or whatever, what do you guys do on them? Because really the server is bringing you a drink to the table And
If
keeping
my
it
cup
refilled.
doesn't run empty, they get a tip.
I still typically
I
tip
still
the
tip.
same way I would at a restaurant, but they're really not serving. They're
It's like
really
when,
just taking a drink order and keeping your glass full.
I don't go as over the top as I do at I don't go like a restaurants generally, especially if I'm like drinking or something like that and I've got a really good server, I generally go over the top because like I said, I did that job for a long time. When it comes to places like buffets and stuff like that, and if you're only getting my drink, then it's I don't I mean a buffet meal, I mean, do you really do percentages wise? I don't know. But
Yeah,
it's one of those
that's
things, I
kinda
guess.
Probably
it's
leave like
the
10
awkward
bucks
place.
or
Yeah, I mean that's
whatever,
kind of one of
5
those things. Like
bucks.
depending on how many kids, depending on if it's just me and the wife, or if it's me and all the kids, you're probably getting like a 15 out of me because my kids are fucking nuts. You know what I mean? But like but I mean like
that's a
that's
good
a
point.
relative situation.
If,
And
if
then-
you have
but-
kids in a place, tip more.
The Mongolian
Yeah,
grill place,
especially
I
for
will
the
still
mess.
I will still tip the person who's cooking really well because honestly, I
The
want them to do
cooks.
it right.
What?
Yeah.
Even better.
Japanese steakhouses.
Excuse me. Amarada and I when we were in Florida, we went to a Korean barbecue, and pretty much all they really do is bring you the drinks and like a menu or some shit like that. But
I explain everything.
yeah, they do explain everything. But
And the soup stuff. And
the waitress that was there helping us, she check up on us like every like maybe 5-ish minutes or something like that. Yeah, I give her a tip because she gave a fuck about the people at her table.
Mhm.
It's not just one of those like you get up, you go get your own food and stuff like that. But all she was doing was like, "Here, let me clean this. Let me
take this out of your way. Let me give you some more of
this, that, and the other, so on and so forth."
How was that? Did you actually like it? Here's something you can do to make this better if you want to. And
pretty much
that's one of the other things too. When it comes to waiting tables too, because I've worked in the industry, like if people don't do certain like basic things, like you're not going to get anything extra from me. You know what I mean? Like if you don't clear the plates, if you don't take care of that kind of stuff, like if you're a shit server, well, guess what? You kind of get what you deserve.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I mean, I took a chick out 2 weeks ago to get fucking wings, and the server was absolute shit. The manager ended up.
Did you go to
coming and
Buffalo
getting
Wild
us-
Wings?
No,
Oh, wow.
it was a local restaurant. It's been good every time. Like I've been there like 7 or 8 times. It's fantastic. So one time I was like, "Hey, like, are you the manager?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right, I got a list of problems. Just when I say there was 10 people in this place, there was 10 people and like 40 tables. There was
shit.
no
God
reason.
damn.
No reason. We both got the wrong orders. We both didn't
Mm.
get any fucking drinks for like 30 minutes. I was like,
Mm.
I'm going to come back, but you need to talk to somebody here about fixing your shit. She took off the appetizer, the wings, and the drinks. So I just gave her the money I would have paid for those as a tip directly in cash to the manager. Like, I'm not
Nice.
giving that to the fucking waiter.
Another good thing to point out too is if you go to a place and you use coupons, or if you get a deal,
Tip off the pre-deal.
tip on the
price, not-
pre-discounted check. Don't tip on the discounted check.
Yeah, don't tip post.
I don't
Right.
tip on the tax though. I tip off the subtotal, not the taxed total.
Oh, you're that guy.
What do you mean?
well, but
Again, there is
Shags
no
makes
tax.
Shag makes a really good point about that too, because like my ex-wife worked for the Joe's Crab Shack down here. So I mean, and you got 50% off your food working at a restaurant, when you came in for them. That was the way it worked. And like it was one of those, like, you got a killer deal. Now you didn't get it off the booze, obviously, but you did off the food. And man, being elite for like the 3 of us there, I mean, you got leftovers for like 2 days with those buckets and stuff like that, walking out of there for like $40 when normally it'd be $100. You bet your ass you're getting a fat tip out of that stuff.
Yeah.
Making out like a bandit.
Some people won't. It depends on like the restaurant you go to, and I know all this stuff only because I've worked in the industry for so long. But like, some people won't tip on drinks. It depends. This is also one of those things you have to sort of gauge like how your service has gone. So like if someone orders a bunch of bottles of wine, if they're coming out and like doing proper wine service, or they're giving you good recommendations on drinks, like those are things you can factor in. If you're drinking mostly, I wouldn't expect someone to tip, $60 on like on a $300 check or whatever. But for if it was like just alcohol, but if the person is making the experience, I think it's important to show them the gratitude, because cocktail waitressing, it's a little different than making up orders and stuff for a whole table. But
Yo, Waffle House fucking sucks.
I want to make sure I heard you right. If you're spending $300, you shouldn't be tipping $60.
no, I'm like, because some people will say like, oh, it was just a bunch of drinks, so why are we tipping you $60 on a bunch of drinks? It just depends on how it goes. Like you could spend you could spend $600 or $300, sorry, on 2 bottles of wine if you were that fancy. So some people won't think that's worth it. But if the server knows what they're talking about, if they pair your wine perfectly with your food, if that's something that you like, then tip accordingly. But I just think if a server or a bartender is really making the experience good for you, and you've spent a lot of money on something, like show them that you appreciate that service. I think you should. That's just
and it also depends on your bartender.
Or tip the bar staff separately to the food.
Yeah, and that's what Silver's
separate it.
saying
Yes,
is, and you
100%.
should tip your bar staff separately from your food in most cases.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
like
'cause
we
it's
had
not
like
the
we had
waiter mixing the drink.
no,
They're
and we
just
had some
carrying it
really
back to you.
cool. We had some really cool bar staff. Like when we were in like peak like holiday seasons, we were right next to a major shopping center. Like those guys would keep the crowds entertained. Like they were literally like we had a pair of them that those guys were just they should have been that well, and they actually eventually did end up moving to fancy bars and restaurants down to downtown. But they would literally throw beers to each other. Like, put the thing over the top of them and toss them and get them to flip. And they were throwing bottles at each other, just keeping everybody entertained while things were stressful.
All that
Dude, they had guys that would come in and just be like, "Hey, Merry Christmas! Here's $100 bill," and just walk out. Because that's the way it goes.
Yeah. I will say
How
the
many of
one
you guys
bar-
tip your postal person or your trash people?
Yeah, at least once a year for Christmas.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking
tip at
about my
Christmas,
post guy
yeah.
this year. I'm thinking about my post
Yeah.
guy this year for sure. No, because he's really cool. He's always been really cool, and he brings stuff up all the time. Like he's stupid. He's a nice guy.
I
Nice
said
guy.
what I said.
Yeah, well, you
Speaking
know
of
what? You say whatever you want.
Speaking
Our
of
trash
gay,
guy,
Yeah.
every time there's a windstorm, he's like, "Yeah, go grab that extra trash can that's just out in the street. You guys can keep it, and I won't ever report that you guys have 3 of the full-size trash cans. We'll still just charge you for the 1." So yeah,
Nice.
you
Oh yeah, there you go. Respect. Oh, yeah.
Speaking of gay, if you're a guy who wants to get drinks fast, drink at a gay bar because it
That
definitely
is
helps.
very true.
My
Like
my
gay
wife and
bar.
I
I
used to
tried
go
that.
dancing.
All that ended up happening is I got fucked.
Were you pitching or catching?
Yes.
Well, let's just
Yes.
say you don't always get the fun end.
That leads to another question. What is your favorite end of the stick?
Whatever one I'm holding.
As a proper
The
answer.
back end.
Yeah. Anyways, that's my service industry spiel for all those of you who are interested in learning.
That's
So,
my TED talk.
that's my yeah. That's my
My TED talk on,
Nice
my
TED
TED talk
talk,
on
Shags.
tipping.
Thank you.